banjo, and then we're in. Well, so just before we get to our other panelists, I want to know, was it your idea to revive the Preppy Handbook? Did it come from you or did it come from Lisa, or was it a combination?
Well, real quickly, I mean, I was obsessed with it, and all, you know, through high school and on into college, etc. And as you may or may not know, the original went out of print in 1990. And I don't know, let's say a year and a half ago, I was being interviewed for a graphic design magazine called Step Inside Design. This is a guy named Sean Adams from the West Coast, very good designer. And one of his questions was, you know, I see you at these design dinners, functions, art directors clubs thing. Everybody's wearing black. That's all designers wear is all black, except for you. And he said, why? And I had never really thought about it. But then the answer sort of, bing. I said, because of the official Preppy Handbook. And men don't wear black unless it's a formal occasion, or a funeral, or a tuxedo thing. Otherwise, forget it. No, color, color, color. And then almost, so that interview came out, and then in April of '09, I got a Facebook friend request from somebody claiming to be Lisa Birnbach.
This is like catfish. Okay, and so this actually happened over Facebook. Something productive happened over Facebook.
Something productive happened over Facebook, and I was like, oh my God, and I wrote back to her and I said, oh my God, is this really you? And then she wrote back to me and said, oh my God, is this really you? And I wrote back to her and I said, oh my God, it's really us. So let's have lunch. And I think our schedules conflicted. We talked on the phone, and then we finally had lunch about a month and a half later. And at the end, and you know, 2.5 hours, it was amazing. It was like a long lost friend. And at the end of the lunch, I said, well, can I ask it? And she said, go ahead, everybody does. And I said, why on earth didn't you ever do the next Preppy book? It's 30 years later, it's a completely different world. You know, computers, texting, rehab. That kind of got the ball rolling, and she said, you know, I've been asked many times, and I've been approached many times, but I never felt that either the time was right, or the person was right, or the situation. And she said, let's continue the conversation. And there it was.
Okay, well, we'll talk a little bit more about the book, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions about it. But I want to find out more about David Coleman's job, because you're known as you're at the Preppy desk of the New York Times. Is that your official? What do you do, David? What is your role in the cosmology of preppies? Where are you?
That's a very good question. I sort of feel like I'm that other planet that was discovered near Pluto, but it's not a planet. That's sort of where I am in the Preppy universe. I'm in the universe, but I'm not anywhere near as close to the sun as you may suppose. I mean, I do. If you really want to be thought of as a dick, you can't just go to Harvard. You have to go to Choate and then Brown. That's really like the ticket to like.
And that's
my credentials. And I actually was given the Preppy Handbook also when I was 15, and I was going off to Rosemary Hall from Wisconsin. And so I sort of straddled growing up, I sort of straddled this, world, living out in the country of Wisconsin, but in a very sort of nice community, so a sort of summer community that might have well been merited inclusion in the Preppy Handbook if it weren't so small and named Shaniqua. So, that was sort of my Preppy roots. But getting back to your question, first of all, I am a freelancer for the New York Times. So I don't have a desk there. It's the sort of
it's a notional desk.
It's a notional desk, exactly. Yes, definitely. It is a notional desk that I occupy. But to echo what Chip was saying, I write a menswear column in the New York Times, and I have for many years. And I have also sort of subtly championed this Preppy revival through both my own particular taste. I don't wear black. I never have. Even when I was sort of after Chode and Brown, sort of erasing my preppy self and trying to be cool, and I still never wore black. I just agree. I just still never thought it was appropriate. And also, it doesn't reproduce terribly well in the New York Times, as it turns out. And color does. And so those two things, my own particular tastes, and the fact that if you print a black outfit in the New York Times, you basically have a black silhouette. And that's it. So those two things have conspired to help bring about the preppy revival.
Interesting. Now, Susan, you also went to Harvard. Where did you go to high school?
I went to the Thank you. I went to the Lycée Français de New York, which is not preppy at all, but I am actually a stealth prep and an undercover prep. I'm the second black descendant of Governor Bradford of Massachusetts Bay Colony, my brother being the first. So I'm the undercover wasp here. And your book raises very troubling questions for me. Just as people say, is Judaism a faith or is it a race? For me, preppydom, is it a race or is it a faith? Because when I was growing up in my very waspy family, you were born into it, you could marry out of it, but you couldn't buy, dress, or drink your way into being a prep. So your book raises interesting philosophical questions because you've made it into a meritocracy.
Whoa.
That's our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. There's really nothing I can add. That
Nobody
was
said anything about relevance.
That was so...
And the book is incredibly relevant because in Depression 2.0, thrift and threadbare are back with a
That's
vengeance.
right.
So you
That's
could
right.
not come at a more timely
Absolutely.
period.
And Jews do very well in those conditions as well, I should add. Right? Lisa's
There
doing
are
better
many
than ever.
Jews mentioned in her book.
Absolutely. Well, now let's get into this because to me, when I was in college, I mean, it was funny, like watching The Social Network, the movie. It was all they were treating these final clubs at Harvard like it was Valhalla or something. It was this most amazing thing. And to me, as a kid who would never have, I was Jewish in public school, I would never have been asked to go to any of this, but I also couldn't have given a shit. It just seemed like this other would be like, being at the zoo, and if you're a baboon, really wanted to get into the duck pond or something. It's like it was a different species. I just had zero interest. And actually, even Mark Zuckerberg, who's been interviewed, said that was a complete invention of Aaron Sorkin, the screenwriter. That when he was at Harvard, he was doing his nerd thing, and he never had any interest in the final clubs, which I kind of tend to buy. But one thing about these books is that they're very aspirational because you're kind of like cracking the code. You're demystifying it, and you're saying, "Hey, look, if you dress the right way and you take the right medications and you use the right lingo, you can be a preppy." Did you find who reads the books? Do you find that it's evenly split between true wasps like Susan Fales Hill and aspirational? It's like an aspirational. Outsiders, Jews, if you will. Do you find that there's? I mean, because it seems like what's sort of a neat trick about the book is that you get it right. Like the insiders actually buy it and they don't think you've screwed anything up, and yet the outsiders sort of say, "Hey, look, here's the decoder ring." So how did you? Is that what you've done, and how did you do it?
The bifurcated audience was a surprise.
Well, you used a long word there.
Yeah.
What was that? Bifurcated?
Yeah, the
Bimodal?
bimodal,
okay.
Binary,
Two
bisexual.
Two audiences.
Right, the two audiences was a surprise. We thought it would only be of interest to people who were tried and true preppies. Once we saw that people were using it as a how-to, were seriously going into their closets and renovating their wardrobes, were choosing new ambitions in their lives and choosing to emulate preppies, or perhaps to try to get into a boarding school in a private liberal arts college. I certainly had to take note of that when we were doing True Prep, because I didn't want to upset, well, I have upset a lot of people, because in this go-round, we're addressing head-on the fact that you could be preppy and Jewish and Muslim and black and gay and Asian and Hispanic and anything.
So who doesn't like that?
Well, there are some, probably daughters of the American Revolution types but mostly it's sons of the American Revolution who have access to a computer and an Amazon account, who have written some, very, somewhat negative stuff about this book, and I think they're upset that the gates are open. And what I say to that is, I don't think it's nice to keep people out. I wouldn't want to be the person to keep people out. If I, a Jewish person, am in and a decoder, then anyone can be let in. And if you look at any literature produced by any single prep school in the country, with the exception of perhaps some pre-monastery kind of place, you will see what James Watt called a beautiful mosaic of America. You will see people of every color, every background, who are now the new preppies, who are the people that these schools want to educate. And I think if somebody is a product of this world, and similarly a product of the black upper class, which is maybe more rigid than the white upper class, then please come in, drink with us, play tennis with us, and wear the pretty pink shirt.
To your point, I'd like to submit that British West Indians of the upper crust are the most preppy of the preppy. They can't cook, they don't like any displays of sensuality, and they are congenitally incapable of discussing emotion. So I would say they uphold the standard better than
I should
anyone.
date one of those.
They're very...
But I definitely think that it is a new world. It is a whole new old world, and you know what? It's not going back. And there are people who are so mad that Princeton's gone co-ed. Well, you're going to have to make your peace with that because it's been co-ed for 30-some-odd years. And people who are so mad that clubs are now co-ed, or that they didn't get into fly or spee, or should I say fly or spee. But you know what? C'est la vie.
More French. That's interesting. Chip, how do you think the world? And I want to hear from David too, as a journalist. How do you guys think the world of preppy has changed? I mean, I guess Kanye is kind of preppy now, or no? You don't buy into that? No. You want to talk about Kanye for a minute?
You know what?
I'm gonna let you finish, but I'm sorry. I just wanted to do that.
I think Chip is a Kanyeologist.
Are you a Kanyeologist? Let's hear what is Kanye's either contribution or extraction from the world of preppiness. What has he done?
I couldn't possibly care less.
Ooh, snap!
No, here's the thing. I was quoted in the Daily News as saying that Kanye was the epitome of the new prep, blah, 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 blah. And I have nothing against the Daily News, except I didn't say anything like that. And Lisa was sitting right next to me as we were interviewed over the phone. It was a total, complete fabrication.
Really? So you don't
Yes.
you don't believe that at all? That's. And why would the Daily News do that? What's their
I don't know.
dog in this fight?
Because they had an agenda on it.
Mhm.
What I had said was, I think, as she was asking us about fashion.
You would not have said the words Kanye or West at any point.
No.
In fact, he said South. I heard that.
That's interesting. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they just leaving that aside. So you think Kanye is not even in this discussion? Not even in.
Yeah.
You don't like
Not
his. You don't
really.
think much of his style. You don't think he's got the preppy thing working.
But that's to Susan's point. Just dressing
Microphone.
Just dressing that way is just not it. I mean, you can dress that way. There are many steps. There are 12 steps probably, if I thought it out.